Let's try this. Good morning. Veterans Day, originally called Armistice Day, is celebrated in commemoration of the silent ceasefire that led to the end of World War I. All major hostilities of World War I were formally ended at the 11th hour on the 11th day of the 11th month in 1918, with the Germans signing of the armistice 99 years ago. Armistice Day was first commemorated by President Wilson in 1919, and many states made it a legal holiday. Congress passed a resolution in 1926 inviting all Americans to observe the day, and they made it a legal holiday nationwide in 1938. The holiday has been observed annually on November 11th since that date. Following World War II, the name of the holiday was changed to Veterans Day in honor of those who served in all American wars. The day has since evolved as a time for honoring living veterans who have served in the military during wartime or peacetime. Today I'm going to read you a short story. It's about how I became a veteran and what became a result of my service. It starts with my dad. He's an Alabama boy who was in the Civilian Conservation Corps when he enlisted in the Army. The citation reads, Army Sergeant Vadon Jasper McIlwain was a member of the Big Red 1, Headquarters Company, 2nd Battalion, 18th Infantry. He was in the battles of Algeria, French Morocco, Tunisia, Sicily, Normandy, northern France, Rhineland, and Central Europe. He received the European, African, Middle Eastern Theater Ribbon with 7 Bronze Stars, the Silver Star Medal, the Bronze Star Medal, the Purple Heart with 1 oak leaf cluster, a Good Conduct Medal, the American Defense Medal, and the Distinguished Unit Badge with 1 oak leaf cluster. He was in the war for duration. When we won, he came home. He returned to Connecticut to his wife, Catherine Marjorie Feeney McIlwain, and their 3-year-old daughter, who he had never seen. He was a genuine war hero. He was a special guest at many salutes to veteran events after the war. He was a big man, 6'5", 240 pounds, and known about the state of Connecticut as Big Jack. He took our sister Alice with him to these events. She, like me later on, got to wear his medals and ribbons at public events and at parades. He was most proud of the CIB, Combat Infantryman's Badge. Be told I'm the oldest of Jack's sons, Irish Catholic family with 3 boys, 6 girls. He called me boy. In fact, he called me the boy. I called him Pop, and he was my John Wayne. I grew up with my dad in VFW and American Legion Post in the taverns of my Connecticut. He was a lineman for the Hartford Electric Light Company, and he took me on the job many, many times. I grew up amongst hard-working men who liked to get their drink on and tell stories. My dad was first wounded early Christmas morning, 1942. That trauma made for some interesting and challenging Christmases in our house over the years. As a boy, I grew up believing I had an obligation as an American-born male to serve my country. There was never any doubt that I would serve. My older sister Alice and my 2 brothers Vern and Vanna served in the United States Army. In 1965, I couldn't have found Vietnam on a map. I was 18, a high school graduate who had a full-time job working nights in an electrical wire plant. I had a '56 Buick convertible that sounded like that truck. A girlfriend still in high school, friends who could buy cigarettes and beer. Life was good. Me and the guys We had a high school friend named Diane Tellier Wentworth, who worked for the Selective Service Office in our hometown of Willimantic, Connecticut. Early one fall evening that year, she told me I was on the military draft list for the next quarter. Today, we are Facebook friends. I think of her often, 52 years later. Honestly, I'd heard enough stories that I knew I didn't want to be in the Army. I was never a Boy Scout. I joined the Junior Midshipmen of America, junior naval organization. We wore Navy whites and dress blues and performed precision close order drill in parades throughout eastern Connecticut. I always liked the uniform, white t-shirt, open collar jumper, square knotted necktie, bell-bottom trousers, boondockers, and that little white hat, Dixie cup on my head. Remember those old-time dance movies on TV? The sailors always stood out, and they were always the best dancers. And I was too. So rather than being drafted in the Army, I joined the United States Navy with 4 close friends. 5 months after graduation from high school, November 3rd, 1965, we went to boot camp together on the buddy system for my senior trip. I learned of the U.S. Navy construction battalions from the recruiter at the old post office. I told him about working with my dad, and he told me the Navy had a rate called construction electrician, and he signed me up to be a CB. I was going to be a lineman, just like my pop. While in boot camp in the Great Lakes, it was determined that the Navy didn't need any construction electricians at the time. And my first orders were to Merriman Naval Air Station as a commissary man, a cook, if you will. Fortunately, I had grease. I was Color Company 674 2nd Platoon Leader, and I was bosun mate of the watch. My company commander, boiler tender first class Hearst, liked me, and he allowed me a late night visit to Mainside to contest the orders. It was a cold, dark December night that I walked that mile to the personnel office. I approached a yeoman seated behind the counter, and presented him my case. He looked at me and said, "Sir, we don't have any billets for a CE right now." Shocked, I kind of mumbled, "Sir, I've been around construction all my life." Seated 2 desks over was another yeoman, and he asked me, "Did you ever drive a truck?" I said, "Sir, yes, sir." And that's how I became a heavy equipment operator in the United States Navy Seabees. He pulled my jacket and wrote me orders, sending me to an 18-week Class A equipment operator school in Port Hueneme, home of the Seabees. There I learned tradition. I learned that Seabees can do. With willing hearts and skillful hands, the difficult we do at once. The impossible takes a bit longer. With compassion for others, we build, we fight, for peace with freedom. In Latin, constructionis batalionis. We build, we defend. Upon graduation from A School, I was assigned to United States Mobile Construction Battalion 9. The battalion had just returned from Vietnam. I joined Alpha Company in time for 4 months of military and specialized training, and in August 1966, the battalion returned to Vietnam. During the Vietnam War, tour of duty for Marines was 13 months. For the Army, Air Force, and Navy, it was 12 months. For Navy Seabees, it was 18 months. 2 9-month tours with a 4-month return home to retrain. Arriving at Red Beach, Da Nang, I was quickly assigned to a 60-man detachment assigned to the Army 5th Special Forces Group. Our mission was to build and reinforce 18 camps and construct airstrips to resupply Camp A-106 at Bateau and A-108 at Minh Long. CB can do. I returned home in April 67 and went on leave, returned and began training for my next trip to Vietnam. That included trips to the range to transition from an M14 rifle to the M16. I was also sent to Vietnamese language school in Coronado for intense 2-week training in the Vietnamese language. My second tour was with the battalion stationed at Hill 327 in Da Nang. Halfway through the tour, at the time I was scraping dirt and moving rocks to build up. bowling alley at the exchange, and to improve living conditions for Marines down around Nang Airbase. Halfway through the tour, I volunteered and was accepted to serve as a member of Seabee Technical Assistant Team 0912. Stat 0912 was a 13-man team consisting of an officer and us highly skilled workers from all Seabee rates. We spent 4 months cross-rate training, conducting military exercises. I attended SEER and another week of Vietnamese language school prior to returning to Vietnam for the third time in April of 1968. CB Team 0912 was assigned to Swan Loc, Vietnam, with a mission to win the hearts and minds of the indigenous people of Southeast Asia. But first we had to construct a defensible place to live. Then we went about rebuilding schools, marketplaces that were destroyed by war. We improved sanitation and drainage. We repaired roads rutted by heavy military vehicles. We employed and trained Vietnamese workers in the use of modern hand tools and equipment. We visited rural villages and provided medical service to civilians, iodine, Band-Aid, antibiotics, and APCs, the all-purpose capsule. I have a great story about my encounter with the Army's 1st Infantry Division late one afternoon, but that's for another time. In fact, I have a whole mind full of CB stories, and none of them have to do with death and dying. That tour I lived and worked amongst the Vietnamese people. They invited me to their celebrations and they took me into their homes. Many of them became my friends. The team was relieved in November of 1968. Today, all of those friends are still within my heart and mind. I again returned to the world unscathed but scarred in some ways. Because I had served 22 months in country, I was offered first-class stripes if I re-enlisted, or an 11-month early out. I took the early out, and that's how I became a veteran. Because I had served more than 180 days on active duty, other than for training, and was honorably discharged, I could now get VA benefits. I could go to college. I could buy a home. I could go to the VA Medical Center if needed, retention. And I'm going to get a marker and a flag when I pass from this world, all with the help of the GI Bill. I went to college and learned about the Vietnam War at home. And while the war raged on for another 6 years in Vietnam, I was at Santa Monica City College and I joined a Veterans Club, and that's where I gained a wealth of knowledge about the war I had just participated in. That is, to talk about your experience to others with a similar experience and listen to their stories in return was the opportunity I had there. We sat and talked to one another. Talking about the war with other veterans compelled me to become active in a movement to end that war, and with efforts to gain accounting of those held prisoner of war and those men listed as missing in action. I also attended Humboldt State, where I met more veterans with different issues than those in the Los Angeles area. My car broke down in Modesto in 1972 on a trip east, and that fall I enrolled at Stanislaus State. I met Valley veterans, and together we formed the first Veterans Club. We started as Chi Gamma Ota, XGI, later to become known as the VC, the Veterans Conspiracy. My college activism drew some attention, and I was offered and accepted a position at Stan State to administer a grant to encourage veterans to attend college. A year later, Modesto Junior College offered me more money to implement the program at their campus and to administer their grant. As Director of Veterans Affairs at MJC, our staff administered educational services at its peak to 4,700 Vietnam-era veterans and their significant others. The grant ended in 1981, and I was recruited to another federally funded program called the Vietnam Veterans Leadership Program. West Point graduate Captain Jeffrey Wilcox and I co-directed VVLP out of a donated office at 2nd and Mission in San Francisco In the early 80s, under action of Federal Agency for Volunteer Service, we pursued our mission to identify successful veterans and to unite them in community-based organizations with the goals of brother to brother, helping brother to succeed. Jeff and I traveled the rubber chicken circuit of civic clubs and organizations and arranged social gatherings to introduce veterans to our mission and to one another. Drawing upon their skills and knowledge and leadership, we provided them with opportunities to help other veterans. We like to think that the traveling wall that heals was a result of VVLP volunteers. In 1984, I accepted a position promoting access to public higher education at Cal State Stanislaus. While visiting high schools and community colleges, I spoke with classrooms of students and met one-on-one with them. I taught to junior U.S. history classes with the opportunity to talk about Vietnam. As I grew older, they were always 17. From community college, my university articulated a clear path for transfer, and I could offer early admissions to those that wanted to pursue a four-year degree. I was able to talk with veterans seeking transfer during those years. At Stanislaus, I had the authority to make admission exceptions, and I used them effectively to reach out to returning veterans. I retired in 2009. I want to thank Sean Francis Malone for the opportunity to speak today. Sean and I enjoyed a beer and shared many a story when we were together. He could not be here with us today. As I mentioned, I learned long ago that the pathway to healing can begin with a simple conversation. Veterans talking to other veterans who share a similar experience. Fathers talking to spouses, sons, and daughters. Ask them how and when they chose to serve their country. Get them to talk about their lives and service to their country. A sailor might tell you that aye, sir, has special meaning. Aye, yes. Yes, I understand. Yes, I will obey. You will learn that the ability to understand and carry out your duty is omnipotent when in service to your country, no matter what your rank or rate. 9 million military personnel served on active duty in the Vietnam era. 2.7 million Americans served in Vietnam, less than 10% of our generation. 20% of those veterans saw combat. There are less than 800,000 American Vietnam War veterans estimated to be alive today. The average age of the youngest is in their mid-60s. There were 7,484 women who served in Vietnam. 83% of them were nurses. There were 1,000 women who served as intelligence analysts, flight controllers, clerk typists, translators, and other significant duties right alongside their male counterparts. Today, there are more than 30 million living veterans. This morning I want to close with a message about my relationship to our country's flag. This message I have shared on Veterans Day for the past 9 years. Traditionally, members of the nation's veteran service organizations have rendered a hand salute during the national anthem and events involving the national flag only when they're wearing their official headgear. You see some of them out there today. The National Defense Authorization Act of 2008, signed by then President Bush on October 14th, contained an amendment which allows military service members not in uniform, military retirees, and veterans of the armed forces to render a military hand salute during the hoisting, lowering, passing of the U.S. flag, and during the playing of our national anthem. When signing, President Bush stated, "I believe this is an appropriate way to honor and recognize the 25 million veterans in the United States who have served the military and remain as role models to other citizens. Those who are currently serving or who have served in the military have earned this right, and their recognition will be an inspiration to others. The military salute is a unique gesture of respect that marks those who have served in our nation's armed forces. Like service members in uniform, they will give the military salute on the first note of our national anthem and they will hold it until the final note while standing at attention. They are permitted to do so whether they are wearing a hat or not. The next time you are at an event of this nature or a sporting event, please know that those of us not removing our hats or placing our hand over a heart are seen saluting our national flag during the performance of the national anthem are honored to show that we have served in the armed forces. When given the opportunity to honor our country flag, and the anthem symbolizes I stand tall. Arms are at my side, my chest is out, my shoulders back, my head is erect, feet are at a 45-degree angle. My eyes and heart are on the flag. I await the first note of the anthem, and I raise my right hand. I keep that hand there until the final note. I do this, and I pay no attention to what anyone else is doing around me. My focus is on the flag. And I feel good doing it because I serve so that those people around me are free to do whatever they want to do, whether I approve of it or not. The first stanza of our anthem ends with this question: "Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave, o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?" My silent response is my demeanor. I am saying, sir, yes, sir. Thank you all for the opportunity, and may the good Lord, thy God, protect and bless you all.